Hi there everybody, Phil Smyth again, coming to you from Japan, and this is another in my series about the teachings of business management guru Peter Drucker. So this time it's the final part in the series about Drucker's entrepreneurial strategies. In the last couple of videos where I've been talking about this stuff, it's kind of always talking about taking some innovative product or service and bringing that to market. In this final strategy, the idea of how to get it to market is actually where the innovation is. So we're talking about taking some existing product or service and converting that into something new. So how do you do that? Well, if you've been paying attention, then you know that Drucker has a simple definition of what a business is, and that is something that creates a customer. So the strategies we're talking about in this video all do that, but in different ways. First, create utility. So you need to focus on doing what enables customers to serve their purpose. Drucker's example of this is the Lenox China Company, who came up with the idea of the bridal registry, or really ran with that idea. Now, I bet you never thought about bridal registries. I know I certainly never did, but this is an interesting story. At the time, and this is around, let's say, the 30s, when brides are getting married, everybody wanted a nice set of china. But that's a very difficult thing to coordinate, and often you'd end up with 2 gravy boats and, 6 cups but only 2 saucers and this kind of thing like this. So Lenox said, why not make a way the bride could say, this is my set of china, and people could go in and say, well, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to buy that, and everybody won. Lenox sold a lot of china because of this, but more importantly, the bride got what they wanted, which was a nice set of china. Unfortunately, no one's figured out how to do the same thing to give the groom what he wants. Second strategy is pricing. Finally, we get to pricing. First thing you have to remember is that customers rarely, if ever, are buying a thing. They are buying what the thing does for them. And this idea was really first exploited by the Gillette company. And obviously it worked well. They're still in business 115 years later. Gillette was founded by the guy named, with this incredible name, King Gillette. And more incredible is that his real name is King Camp Gillette. But he didn't use the camp. He thought maybe it was too over the top. He just used C. He didn't invent the safety razor. That's the kind of thing that's interesting here. He didn't even really perfect the safety razor. His innovation was to almost give the thing away. He actually gave the razor away for less than it cost. So he sold it for less than it cost to make it. But he sold the blades. It cost 1 penny at the time to make a blade, and he sold it for 5. So that's a huge markup. But the thing is that people weren't buying the blade. They were comparing it to the cost of going to the barber, because at that time most people would go to the barber to get a shave, and at that time a shave cost 10 cents. So for the cost of 2 shaves, somebody could buy a blade and give themselves 6 or 7 shaves. That was the comparison.
Look sharp, feel sharp, be sharp and listen, mister. How are you fixed for blades? How are you fixed for blades? You better check.
I have to talk for a second about King Gillette, because he published a book called The Human Drift, and he published that in 1894. And if you switch those around, it's 1984. Interesting. But in this book, The Human Drift, and this is before he founded Gillette Razors, Gillette proposed that all industries should be taken over and run by a giant single corporation owned by the public. And that everyone in the US should live in a giant city called Metropolis that would be powered by Niagara Falls. And a later book that he wrote called World Corporation from 1910 was actually like the vision statement of this company that would do this all. So in short, King Gillette was crazy, and that's why I love him. Other companies have used this strategy to great effect, and the first one that comes to mind for me is Xerox copiers, or the whole copying industry, where they leased at a very low cost this machine to offices, but they made the offices pay for the copy. So that's where the money was really made, certainly in the early days. So you have to remember the lessons of the king. Customers are buying the shave, not the razor. The third strategy in here is adapting to the customer situation. So 150 years ago, the concept of installment payments was really formalized. The driver of this was farm equipment. Get it? Driver, farm equipment. So at that time, these things are really expensive. They're still really expensive. And people knew that, if a farmer bought one of these pieces of equipment within 3 or 4 seasons or less, this piece of equipment would pay for itself by the increased productivity. But even though they knew that, no banks would underwrite that risk. So the McCormick Harvesting Machine Company let farmers pay on installment. It was really the first time that was done on such a large scale. That company evolved into International Harvester, which is still going, certainly one of the biggest farm manufacturers in history. So again, these things work. So the final entrepreneurial strategy is perhaps the most profound, and that is focus on delivering value, not a product, to the customer. Drucker's example in one of his writings is about this company, unnamed company for some reason, in the Midwest that came up with the idea of an oil subscription for construction companies. So the construction company would be sure that their machines never ran out of oil and therefore it didn't break down. The construction company wasn't subscribing for oil. They were subscribing to reduce the risk of downtime for their machines. That's what they were buying. And for instance, my company that manages customer interaction for people who sell on Amazon to the people who buy those products on Amazon. My customers are buying a way to reliably contact their customers. They don't care about the technology and even to a certain extent the features. What they want is that reliability and that interaction. So these are simple ideas. My Amazon customer service company or an oil subscription company, they're not rocket science, But there's a great quote in Drucker's piece from the economist David Ricardo, and he says, profits are not made by differential cleverness, they're made by differential stupidity. And that is that lots of great strategies work not because they are clever, but because the truth is that most manufacturers and service providers just don't think. In Drucker's view, any company that asks the question, what does the customer really buy, is the one that will survive and thrive. Drucker called this elementary marketing. And he said to start out with the customer's utility, with what the customer buys, with what the realities of the customers are, and what the customer really values. That's what marketing is all about. So that's my little series about Drucker's entrepreneurial strategies. I hope you've enjoyed it. This also brings to an end my series about Drucker's business strategies. And it's been fascinating for me. I've learned a lot about Drucker's views and opinions and how groundbreaking he was. I mean, I knew some of this stuff, but to put together this series, I learned an awful lot more. And to verbalize it really made it clear for me, which is the whole reason I started doing these YouTube videos in the first place. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe. There's going to be lots more videos to come. I'm going to keep up my machine of producing 2 videos a week. And lots more book reviews and business sessions to come. See you soon. Thanks.